Hello and welcome. This is Michele Christensen, and this is my Plan With Me video for March 2018. Now, I myself am an avid OneNote fan, and I use OneNote to keep just about everything in my life organized and moving forward. I'm a YouTube creator, blogger at OneNoteworthyLife.com, and I host the OneNote Bullet Journal Facebook group. Now, I do post a lot of OneNote tutorials where I show you how to do certain things, but this is more of a walkthrough of pages that I've created for the month, and it shows my process of how I change from one month to the next. So there's not a whole lot of OneNote hacks or tricks in this. My actual planning process takes a while, and I like to really take my time and think it through. I use this process and this time of changing month to month to reflect and evaluate on how I'm doing on the goals I've laid out for myself. I often start and stop several times to give me time to think or just to keep the process fun. So let's jump in. The first thing I do is review the goals that I set for last month, which in this case is February. The text in black is actually the goal I set for myself, and then I usually use a color to indicate my reflection or how I did on that. So I set up this page, which you'll see at the end of this video when I set up March, and then I make a copy of it to do my review. So, as I said, the colored text is commentary on my goals. So, first thing, I have a calorie goal of how I want to eat every day. I know people have different feelings about counting calories, but it really does work for me. I had a very difficult last half of 2017, and several things got off track, and I did get above my ideal healthy body weight. So I'm working on getting back to that ideal healthy body weight. So I set this calorie goal of -80 per day, meaning that I undereat by 80 per day. And I will show you just one kind of cool, fun thing, in case you don't know this. So if you type in 80 times 28 days in February equals, and then hit enter, it shows up for you. Gives you the total of 2240. Now I am going to undo that because I want to keep the blue commentary. When I hit enter, it created a new bullet for me. So I nailed it. I ended up at an average of 122 negative for the day. So my next big goal was to get my sleep on track. Now this is a big category, I know that, and there's going to be a lot of parts to this, but this is kind of part of what unfolded in the last half of 2018 for me, which was that my sleep got way off track. So the one concrete target I have for right now is to work on not taking my tablet to bed. So I really love my tablet. I use a Samsung Galaxy Tab A with S Pen. I'll put a link to that in the comments because it's a really nice, reasonably priced tablet with a pen. And I love my tablet, love taking it to bed, and I like to play games and read and browse the web, etc. But as I started to think about getting my sleep back on track, I began to suspect that this was not helping my sleep. I often woke up feeling like I had been thinking all night, and there's a lot of sources that say that using electronics right before sleep isn't good. For me, it seemed too stimulating for something that's supposed to lead to sleep. So I set the goal that I wanted to have my tablet in bed only on Saturdays and one other day per week. So I did pretty good on this. I had 15 out of 28 nights with no tablet, and of the 13 nights where I did take a tablet to bed, 8 were within my goal. So I had 5 days that were not part of my goal. And when I go back and look at that, I will tell you, we can actually look at my February calendar where I track this. So I'm going to show you this in a little more detail later. But up at the top of this page is, you can see in purple, it says tablet-free bedtime. And then each day I don't take the tablet to bed, I give myself a little purple mark so I can go back and check how I did on that. And I had a launch this past month of a new live chat series called the Take Note Chat. And that is something that Jared DeCamp of ClassandOffice.com and I are hosting. It's a live YouTube event where we can take questions and things like that. And anytime you do a launch or set up something new for the first time, it can be stressful, and we had a lot of tech issues with that. I did specifically, and so yeah, I had a pretty stressful few days leading up to that. And if you look at the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, which was the day we launched the chat, those are, I had a long string of days in a row where I was taking my tablet to bed. So what that tells me is that I probably need to work on some better ways to cope with stress, because stress isn't going away. So I had this idea during the month of February, which is to track what time I get up. And so I began tracking it and slowly dialing it back, because I think if I nail the wake up time, the time I go to bed will begin taking care of itself naturally. And there's again a lot of sources that say it's good to have a set wake up and go to sleep time. Okay, so bonds, that's just a little personal project I have, and I did not work on that in February, so I do need to get on top of that. The next thing I have in here is to work toward an end of day process. So I feel like I don't know when I'm done for the day. And sometimes I'm up late at night doing things when I should be going to bed, and I'm never sure when I'm quite finished. So I wanted to just start working toward this. Now, a lot of people that talk about goal setting and things like that say it should be concrete and measurable. So putting something vague like this, like work toward an end of day process, might be a little bit too vague for some people, but for me it helps because it's a very gentle way. It doesn't feel like too harsh or punitive, and this is my sleep we're talking about, so this is not something I need to be like, yeah, go get them, And it also puts this in my consciousness. Every time I look at these goals, I can kind of see that, oh yeah, I want to be thinking about what can I do at the end of the day to sort of wind down and transition. So one thing I have done is to start using the critical tag, and I will show you this in just a second. But there's a way to tag things on your daily page, and so I use the critical tag for anything that needs to be done today. And I try and keep this really truly to things that need to be done today, where there's a significant penalty or something like that if it's not done today. And that way, when I'm ready to finish up for the day, I can look at that and just see if the critical items are done, I'm probably good. And so this has actually worked really well. I can take one last look and say, okay, the critical items are done. A lot of the other stuff is done. I am good for the day. So that really helps me to just kind of shut off and unplug. So let me go ahead and demo that for you. So I've got my cursor right at the beginning of this bullet where it says use critical tag. I'm going to click there. And I'm going to go up to the home menu, and in this drop-down menu, and there's a tag that says critical. And I'm using OneNote for Windows 10, by the way. So your version might look a little different, but you should have this somewhere. When I click that, you can see this little red exclamation point has now come up on that bullet. And so that's what I use. I really like that. It's just very simple, very clear, very visible, so I can see what needs to be done today. So the final goal I had for February was to think about how to prune my daily setup. It still feels really cumbersome. And sometimes it just takes me a while to kind of put all the pieces together, figure out what I need to work on. So I haven't come up with any ways to change this process, but I'm aware of it. And again, this is something that may not be a concrete goal, but it's something I really want to be thinking about and looking for. And I feel like by putting this in my goals, I can always be looking on the lookout for it, and I'm more likely to spot it when I'm looking for it. So I'm hoping that my 2018 pruning efforts show results and that I'll have simpler days with less to keep track of. So that is my word for 2018, is pruning and kind of cutting back and having fewer active things. Okay. Now, once I've checked in on my goals, I like to do a little bit of writing about what else. So what else happened in this month that affected like why I made my goals or why I didn't, why I had a good month or didn't. So this is my what else section. So one thing I noted is that I'm feeling burned out. I've had lots of just stuff in the last few years. There's major kind of life events that really, kind of knock you back and take some time to recover. And I have just had a few years culminating in the last half of 2017 with a lot of quote unquote stuff. So I'm working toward taking more time off. And I think that's a great step for me. So again, with this last half of 2017 going so off the rails, my husband and I kind of have not been getting out as much as we would like to. So we have decided we are going to do 2 monthly dates. So I'm going to plan one and he's going to plan one. So I'm really excited about that. I already have mine planned, and I'll probably share that when I do my my April plan with me, and I'll do a March review. So during the month of February, our microwave oven died. And yes, I realize this is not a major thing in the scheme of life, but it was a disruption, and it created a lot more dishes and cleaning on a daily basis. And then we had to kind of go out and order a new one. And of course, they always change the model numbers, this, that, and the other. It's just not a simple thing to buy a microwave. And ours is one of the built-in ones, so it had to be ordered specially and whatnot. But we did get it done, and it's being delivered in early March. I started physical therapy, so that was something that was going on in February. It's great. Everything's terrific. I'm loving it. But it was pretty disabling the first few times. I was pretty wiped out. But as of when I wrote this, I was hoping it levels out. And yes, it has leveled out, actually. So during February, as I mentioned, I had the successful launch of the Take Note chat. So that was something that took up, any launch is going to take time and kind of bump other things around in your schedule. But that really did take a lot of time and effort. It's great. I'm thrilled with it, but it did take time. So my final thought about February was that I didn't post as many videos as I wanted, but sorting out the tech for that chat did take more time than I thought. So, yeah, not good that I didn't get as many videos, but there's a very good reason for it, and I feel good about how I use my time. So the next thing I want to check in on is how I did on my pruning efforts. So pruning, as I said, is my word for 2018, and I'm going to explain this in a future video, but the idea is I just want to stop having so many active and open things on my plate, so I'm not jumping so much from thing to thing. So I am working on keeping my daily task list small, and it still creeps, so I need more work on this. I want to just keep pushing it forward, keep trying to do better. And I'm working on not creating any new projects or random to-do lists until something is off my plate. And a great example of this is the microwave oven I just mentioned. So I have so many projects I could have added, but this one is still open. So I'm waiting until this is done before we take on our next house project. We did actually order it, and then there was a time where we were waiting for it to be delivered, and then we're waiting for the installer to come. So I could have picked up something else and gotten into that, but it just feels like that's kind of what been my pattern over the last few years, and I end up with lots and lots of open projects. So I don't want to work that way anymore, and so I'm not doing it. So I'm really pleased that I caught myself on this and didn't do it. Okay, so the next part of my February review is to look at my annual plan. So I do an annual plan for the year. And it's very simple. It just has like the big sort of events for each month, and it gives me a sense of how the year's going to play out and when I'm going to have time to take things on and not. So this up here was the February annual plan. The third was an anniversary for my husband and I. And we had a project that I'm calling our house rearrange, which I wanted to start. We're just moving around some of the spaces and some of the ways we use the different space in our house so that we can make the most of it. I'm really happy to say we made progress on that, and I've continued to just push this forward bit by bit, and so it's in progress. It's great. I also have a website I want to put up for my mom. We've been sitting on this for a while, and I need to have a conversation with her where we can kind of work and brainstorm, and we just were not able to connect during the month of February. So didn't make any progress, but again, I feel good about the reason. We just couldn't make the connection. So my comments on my annual plan was that it was pretty reasonable, which I'm happy about, and I tend to overestimate, so it's progress just to have simply made a realistic plan. And the project I mentioned with the house rearrange, we've made progress, I've stayed on track, and I'm happy with the results so far. So the last thing I want to show you, we already had a peek at, this is my February calendar. I don't really use this to keep appointments or anything like that. It's more of like a journaling type page, and one of the last things I do before bed is to write down something good that happened that day. And then I like to do a little doodle or something sometimes. So that's what this is. And then, as I mentioned before, if I have like one major habit I'm trying to push forward on, I might track it on here. This is my February calendar, and I really enjoy this. It actually, it's really fun to work on the doodles and look at it later. Okay, it is now time, now that I've done all that, and this, like I said, sometimes it takes me a few minutes, sometimes I might take, an hour or two cumulative. Sometimes I like to stop and start and come back and think about it, but once that's all done, I can start setting up March. So the first thing I do is I look at the March section of my annual plan, and this is what it looks like. So the main thing I have going on this month is the dogs have to have their vet checkup, and then I have to make sure I renew their license by the end of the month. And I do, since I didn't get to my mom's website, I want to continue on that. And I also, I didn't put that on here, but we're going to continue with the house remodel project. I'm sorry, the rearrange project. Then the next thing I do is I make a copy of February's goals and title it March, and then I update it. So with that calorie goal, I'm going to go up a little tiny bit. And if you're curious about this, this is just something that I have found works really well for me to sort of change it very slowly so that my body doesn't adapt to it. I can kind of sneak it in under the wire. So I'm continuing to work on getting my sleep on track. So I'm going to continue with my tablet-free bedtime. And I'm going to try the same goal, which is tablet only on Saturday and one other day per week. And I'm going to continue to track what time I get up and keep dialing it back week by week. So I got to get to work on those bonds, and I'm going to work toward an end of the day process. And with this, one of the models I'm using is people with small children and babies. Sometimes they have like an end of day process, and it might be like, okay, well, we have a snack, and then we have story time, and then we brush teeth, and then we get tucked in, whatever. But there's a process, and I think it helps humans of all ages sort of know the day's over and to kind of shut down. So that's kind of what I would like to have, a process like that for myself, where I wrap my work day up and things like that. So as I mentioned, I'm using the critical tag, and that is still working. So I'm going to continue to do that in March. And I'm actually filming this a little ways into March. So this was an idea I thought of on the 7th, which was to target a lights out time and tie it to my wake up time so that I get proper sleep. So based on what time I'm planning on waking up, I'm going to backtrack and figure out what time the lights need to go out to get me to the right amount of sleep for that. And so I've been doing that a few days. That's working really well. Another thing I thought of, and let me just back up for a second and say that sometimes we track things or do this planning and review process, and it might seem pointless when you're looking at it from the outside. But this next thing I'm going to talk about, which is my second coffee of the day, I don't think I would have caught this if I hadn't been actively thinking about and looking at and paying attention to my sleep patterns. And I had gotten into the habit of having a cold brew coffee in the afternoon, and I love cold brew coffee. I make my own. It's kind of like one of my favorite things. And cold brew coffee is really strong, and so I think I was having my second coffee too late in the day, and it was interfering with my sleep. So I'm dialing that back. I'm bringing that earlier into the day. And, it might seem like a small thing to you. It might have been really obvious to you, but it really helped me to figure that out. I didn't know that for a while. And so I'm still working on my final wind down activity routine, and I'm still working on how to prune my daily setup. And so the last thing I have to do for March is go and set up my March calendar. And as I said, I'm filming this a little ways into March. So the March calendar is already set up. I'm tracking that tablet-free bedtime. I'm going to use green this month, which you can see right under the word March. It's highlighted in green. And I've already started filling in, all the good things that are happening this month. So that is it. That's how I review my prior month and plan my month out. So this was a plan with me video for March of 2018. So if you have any questions or comments or something you want to see in more detail, you can just add a comment to this video and I will do my best to answer you. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button so I know you like this. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye.